Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today I'm going to work on a Daiwa 9000C. It's an oldie but a goodie. If you have one of these reels, and if you're wondering what makes it work, if you want to see how to maintain this reel, or you're just curious about what was a top-of-the-line reel about 2 decades ago, then I'll take you through this, and hopefully you'll learn something from it. I picked this one up at a flea market the other day. It's a beautiful reel. It's a fine example of the Daiwa Silver Series. It's a single ball bearing reel that stood the test of time. And there are some people that prefer a Daiwa or a Shimano or a Penn. I can tell you that this reel, the 9000C, which is the biggest in that class, by far is one of my favorites. The statement they don't make them like they used to can hold true for this reel. This is a very high capacity reel, high quality in the metal casing, in the brass and stainless gearing, in the ball bearing, and so on. If there's a complaint about using this versus a current model reel, current model reels would probably have a graphite case, a couple of more ball bearings, and the other one that always gets me is I call it the hammer for the bail release. It has a little hammer on there that you need to slam the bail wire against in order to clip it over. The reel was made in Japan, and it's a Daiwa, and I'll take it apart and show you how to make this thing work. Again, if you have one of these, you know all about the quality of this reel. If you don't have one of these, then you'll learn a little bit more about them, so that if you see them at a fisherman's flea market or at a garage sale, you won't hesitate to pick one of these up. Start by taking the handle off. Now, I bought this reel at a flea market, and what impressed me was it's so clean and it works. I took you through an example recently of a bad buy at a flea market that one of my customers brought me. It was looked okay from the outside. The spool shaft did not work, and it was kind of a tip-off that stay away from that reel. Okay, 3 side plate screws on this one. It could be a Phillips head or a flat. It was made for either. I use the Phillips head screwdriver here. If you notice, I'm wearing a latex glove on my hand. That's because I'm never sure what's inside these reels. I like to keep those chemicals off my hands if possible. I have trouble when I put a latex glove on my right hand. I'm a right-handed person because I can't deal with the small pieces and parts. Okay, this comes off, and the inside is beautiful. It's what I would have expected. It looks like it's been maintained and serviced because that grease in there is a blue-green grease that works fine and usually doesn't change color over time. So nice clean reel. We're going to start by taking the spool assembly off. To take the spool assembly off, you remove the retaining nut on the cross-wind block. It's a Phillips head. And if you notice, I'm putting all my pieces and parts into a parts tray. That way I can keep track of them over time. All right, take the nut out, hold the main gear, and you should be able to pull the assembly up. And that's what we just did. We pulled that assembly up and off. You do not need to take the spool off in order to take the shaft out. Okay, main gear off. The main gear is just indicative of the quality of this reel. This is a brass shaft, a brass cross-wind sleeve with the gearing on there that drives the cross-wind gear. In this case, it appears that the cross-wind gear is a stainless piece, as is the main gear up top, the shaft gear, and this is well lubricated. For the example of how to maintain this reel, I'll take this off and show you what should be done. But this one looks like it's just recently been serviced, and it has. There's plenty of lubrication in there, and nothing needs to be done with this one. So you would normally put some lubrication on the crosswind gear, a little bit in the indentation on the cross gear sleeve. Make sure that it gets seated over that little pivot point that they put in there, and then you can just replace that. On the back, this has just been recently serviced. There's nothing to be done here. What I typically do is I check the teeth to make sure there's no scarring, that it should operate smoothly. And I also check the teeth on the smaller gear, which interwipes with that crosswind gear. Those are fine. This is a monster gear up top here. It's a beautiful piece. You can tell that it's high quality steel, probably stainless. Looks like it's a little dry. We'll go put just a little bit of grease on that. I use a blue grease. In this case, I use a Penn Precision Reel Grease. Any of the current products on the market would work fine with this, just to keep it not too much on the lubrication. I find that the number one failure of a reel is that there's no grease. The number two failure is there's too much grease. So just find the right amount and put that in there. Okay, reassembly. We'll wait on that for a moment. Let's take the top off and work the oil, the burring there. The top is held on by a nut, usually a 12 millimeter, and that's the case. Just loosen it up. Okay, into the parts bucket with that. There's a keyway on this one. Sometimes it can just come up. Yep, it just came up. All right. Sometimes it doesn't, so make sure you know that that's there. And then let's look inside, and this is beautifully clean inside. All I'm going to do with this one, there's a burring right here on the sleeve. I'm just going to put a little bit of burring oil on there, just a drop or two. I use Real-X as the burring oils, and just a little bit about the anti-reverse dog mechanism as well. Again, that's fine, so let's just go back and put that right on there. You want to make sure that the keyway seats properly with that little aligning mark. Then there was a friction washer that goes on top of that, and then the nut. This one winds clockwise. You may find some reels that wind left, not right, counterclockwise. Be careful with that. Don't try and wrench something off if you're having difficulty getting that off. You want to check first to back it off and see if it works that way. Okay, so now we've lubed up, oiled the bearing. We're going to reassemble by putting the main gear in and making sure that this, which drives the crosswind gear, is set right. There's a bushing on the other side there. This is only a one ball bearing reel. Sometimes that's all you need, right? Somebody said, what's the maximum? I said anything more than 3 seems to be, stretching it a little bit. You need, preferably you would have one on each side of the main drag and one on the gearing up there. But, if you put 4 or 5 or 6, sure, they're going to be more convenient. The fourth one usually goes on that behind that crosswind gear in terms of efficiency. Fifth one, if you get a fifth one, it's usually in the handle. Sixth and seventh up in the spool. I mean, if you get for example, a Daiwa Saltiga, which is top of the line today, you'll have a spool bearing up there. You'll also have a spool bearing in some of the other things like pens. The Penn Battle, for example, would have that. And just aligning the Phillips head screw, which goes into that to hold the shaft in. I test it before I go any further. I just make sure that we have it working the way it should, which that's exactly what it's doing. The spool's going up and down as it should. Okay, so then the back goes on. Again, that has a bushing on this side, not a bearing. You align your screw holes, and you can see that keeping those parts in that parts tray generally is a good idea. All right, so we've lubed this. We're going to move on. I'm going to tighten this down, and then we'll move on, and I'll show you how to do the drags up top. And again, from everything I'm seeing here, I don't expect a problem with the drags either. But again, I bought this at a flea market last weekend, and I don't know the reel. It looks like it's been well maintained, and I'm happy with the purchase. But I want to make sure that if I take it fishing, that it doesn't fail me when I'm out on the trip. So the drags would be the last thing that I would want to check for, and make sure that they're properly lubricated as well. My guess is that this reel has been sitting for some time, hasn't been terribly used or abused, and that I did well with my purchase. Okay, so we're putting the the handle and then this opposite screw. And nice thing with this one is this handle is reversible. So if I wanted to reel with my right hand as opposed to my left, I would simply reverse the setup there. Okay, so we take the top off. Spool comes off. Spool has a retaining clip in there that usually can come out with a tweezers or something similar in nature. There's a little groove that it rides in, and I like to just hold my hand on it because that thing has a tendency to fly out. So set that aside, and then we're going to take these out. So you should have a series of metal and fabric washers in here. And that's exactly what we have. All right, so, or Teflon. I guess these are Teflon. Okay, so these have probably been upgraded as well. All right, so this is the order. And again, this reel has been well maintained. There's nothing I need to do with these drags. So Teflon, metal, Teflon, eared, Teflon, metal, clip. All right. One thing to do quickly is just to grab a little paper towel or something and just make sure that it's clean in there, which it is. These have got oil on it. If they didn't have oil on them, if they had sand or contaminants, you would want to clean these off. These are simply have the oil there, and that's fine. Okay, so we're just reinserting these just the way we had them before. The eared washer goes in the middle of this, and it's alternating Teflon and metal drags, and then it finishes off with the retaining clip, and the retaining clip again rides in a little groove there. And again, kind of keep them covered until you know you got it seated, otherwise you get what I call the boing effect, where the spring goes boing and you go looking for it. So then you just want to make sure that they're all aligned so that they can fit over the shaft, which is next, seating this on the shaft. Make sure it's all the way down. Go back to your parts bucket and grab your drag knob, and you're done. So this is a beautiful example of a flea market reel where it worked out. It's ready to go fishing. There you go. So if you have one of these, I hope it's helped in showing you the general repair methods and lubrication points. If you don't have one of these and you see one in a flea market, I would say go pick one up. It's a wonderful example of a high quality, earlier technology reel that is certainly going to last a long time. With that, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. If you like this video, please note that. If you'd like to see more of these, please subscribe. I'm constantly working on repairing fishing reels of all varieties, and I post frequently, so you'll get updates about once or twice a week. Right? Thanks for viewing.